Before I had a Commonplace Book, I would keep quotes I like inside of the Notes app on my phone. The issue with that method for me was that it was easy to forget about things and equally easy to accidentally delete things. Words of wisdom were put there and never revisited, so I'm reviving an old quote I forgot about, which I found in a note on my phone from 2023 when I was reading the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And as for the stickers that I made for this entry, this first one is an oil painting by the painter George Catlin. And I know that the woman featured in this painting is not from the same tribe as the author of the quote I'm using today, but I thought this painting was beautiful, so I used it here. And then I added a border that I found on Century Library and also a little piece of braided sweetgrass as a nod to the title of the book. And I also found these leaves and plants, the images from Century Library too. I knew right off the bat that I wanted to use these two stickers, and so I placed these first, but you'll see that I struggle with the other two. I knew I wanted a third one to fill in the space a little better, but I wasn't sure which one I wanted, and I go back and forth on which one I want to place. Sometimes when I'm placing stickers, I don't know which ones I want to use, and I really have to figure it out as I'm placing. I did know that I wanted that big, long one across the top because that was an interesting layout to me. Whenever I'm making these, I always want to find new and interesting layouts. I want to do something that I haven't done before. And this is one that I don't think I've done before with a long, skinny one along the top like this. So this was the idea I had in my mind of why I placed that specific one. So it's here where I'm faced with my indecision. I'm not sure if I like that pink leaf there because it creates this box effect, and I don't know if everything felt too boxy with the sharp corners of the oil painting with that corner that that top leaf makes. I wasn't sure if that sharpness, the rectangular feeling, was a little too much. And so I tried the other one, which is more rounded, more natural shaped, but I don't like how thin the space is between the two stickers, and knowing that I have to flow my text in between there, I don't think I'll have enough room to write comfortably or make it look good if I use the other sticker. And so I decided to go with the more boxy layout. And I'm glad I went with this one because in the end, I do really like this layout and I'm happy with how it turned out. And I really lean into that rectangular shape, even with the text that I'll be writing as well. And speaking of the writing, let's talk about the pens I'm using in this entry. So this is the Sailor Pro Gear Slim in the color Manju, and the nib size is a medium fine. I have it inked with Sailor Shikiori Do You, which is a more gentle black. Sailor Kiwaguro is my favorite deep black, but Do You is a nice alternative when you want a dark color but not pitch black. It has this nice warmth to it, but it's very subtle. And actually, I think I've only ever had Do You inked in this pen, and I want to say that that ink came with this pen, and I thought it was a perfect match. And since then, I have only ever inked Do You in this pen. I think it's my only Sailor pen that ever came with an ink. It's from the Japanese Sweets collection, the Wagashi collection, and it had a pretty gift box that came with it. But back to the entry. So here I am writing my source information on the left side of the column, as you know I always do for my commonplace. I write the source type, whether it's a book, an article, or whatever it is, the year it was published, and then the title of the source that the quote is from, and the author. So that's what I'm writing here. And I will read you the quote that this whole Commonplace Book entry is about too. I think this quote actually came from the beginning of the book in Braiding Sweetgrass, so you don't have to read too far into it to reach this quote. This is the quote. In the Western tradition, there is a recognized hierarchy of beings, with, of course, the human being on top, the pinnacle of evolution, the darling of creation, and the plants at the bottom. But in native ways of knowing, human people are often referred to as the younger brothers of creation. We say that humans have the least experience with how to live and thus the most to learn. We must look to our teachers among the other species for guidance. Their wisdom is apparent in the way that they live. They teach us by example. They've been on the earth far longer than we have been and have had time to figure things out. They live both above and below ground, joining Skyworld to the earth. Plants know how to make food and medicine from light and water, and then they give it away. I like to imagine that when Sky Woman scattered her handful of seeds across Turtle Island, she was sowing sustenance for the body and also for the mind, emotion, and spirit. She was leaving us teachers. The plants can tell us her story. We need to learn to listen. I remember when I first read that in 2023, it being so profound because native ways of knowing and native teachings are unfamiliar to me. And so this is a whole new concept, a whole new way of seeing, and I really resonated with it. And honestly, there are so many great quotes in this book. This is just one of the first ones that I happened to come across in my notes app. I highly recommend reading the book in its entirety because it's a really beautiful book. And side note about the pen here, I'm using the Pilot Custom 742 with the posting nib, and that is a specialty nib that is very, very fine. It's Pilot's finest nib, so that's how I'm able to write so tiny here. I have more information about it in my previous video, if you're curious about super fine fountain pen nibs. And so now that I have the quote written down, I follow it with my usual personal thoughts. And I do write these in cursive, that way I could differentiate between what's the quote and what is my personal thought on the subject. And what I'm writing here for my personal thoughts, I'm musing on the fact that some plant species have been around since the age of dinosaurs. They are so old, and plants have seen so much more than humans ever have. But perhaps my mind went here because I've been seeing so much recently on this, I think it's a Netflix documentary on dinosaurs. I haven't personally seen it yet, but I've seen so many people talk about it, and so I think that was fresh on my mind when I did this entry. So that's where my mind was when I mentioned dinosaurs in this section. It's funny what pops up in your mind, how your mind makes these connections of things. It really comes out when you're journaling and you can see these connections in written physical proof. But anyway, that was a tangent. Back to plants. My whole thought was that plants are so ancient and wise, and we could learn a thing or two from them. We, as a human species, are so young in comparison to plants. And if we as a species want to live as long as plants have, I think there are lessons to be learned from them. But yeah, that's the quote, and that's my thought on it. And here I am writing the subject at the top as I normally do. And then the last step is to add a date stamp at the top right. I get asked a lot where I found this date stamp, and I found mine on Amazon. I think the brand name is KTWT. I bought mine years ago, so I'm not sure if the exact one is still available, but that's where I got mine. And as for the ink stamp pad, I'm using the Versa Magic Dewdrop ink stamp pads. And also when I stamp, I like to add in a book underneath to bring the height up, because if I don't do that, sometimes when I stamp down, I don't get into the paper as much, and so it's too light or it doesn't stamp all the way. So having that page lifted up towards me does help with the stamping. So I do put a booklet behind there just so I can get a nice, clean, solid stamp. And that is today's Commonplace Book entry. Thank you so much for watching this video.